All right, so get this. This article we're diving into, the intelligence age.
Hmm.
It basically says we're about to step into a world that would look like magic to like our grandparents.
Yeah, it's funny you say magic because I was thinking, it's not like we've got robots running around taking over or anything, although,
We'll save the robot takeover for another day, maybe.
right, exactly. But it's more like the article makes this point that what we're seeing is like human progress, but like somebody hits fast forward.
Yeah, and sometimes it does feel like we're living in the future already, right? But this article is saying it's even bigger than that. Like they compare it to the agricultural revolution, the industrial
Yeah,
revolution.
those huge leaps, right?
Yeah, huge. So what's the connection? Help me understand that.
So think about it. Those revolutions were all about humans figuring out how to use new kinds of power,
Mhm.
like literally horsepower, right? Then it was steam engines. But now we're talking about the power of intelligence itself.
Okay, so this intelligence age, it's about how understanding and using intelligence changes literally everything.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. How we live, how we work, even how we think.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
it all gets kind of like reshaped when intelligence itself gets this massive upgrade.
So how did that work? How do we upgrade intelligence? The article mentions deep learning a lot, and I'll be honest, I don't totally get it.
Okay, so imagine like you dump a huge box of Legos in front of a kid, right? No instructions, no guide. It's just all these pieces. And somehow they just start building these incredible, intricate things. That's kind of what deep learning is doing with computers, right? We're feeding them mountains of data, and they're learning to see patterns and make connections that, honestly, we as humans, we just can't.
So it's learning, but is it actually intelligent? Is that the right word for it? And like,
Yeah.
what does this look like outside of the Lego bin? What are we talking about in the real world?
Okay, so think about like personalized tutors that adapt to every single question you have,
Yeah.
or healthcare systems that can diagnose diseases with like scary accuracy.
Wow.
We're talking about software that basically writes itself based on what you need it to do. It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's a lot more than a faster phone for sure. The article, though, it does seem to paint a pretty optimistic picture, right? Like, we invent AI solves all our problems, everybody wins, right?
Well, it's not quite that simple.
There's always a but, isn't there?
Right, exactly. And that's where we need to kind of dig a little deeper into the details here because the article does talk about this idea of widespread prosperity and tackling these like massive global challenges with AI,
Mhm.
which is, super exciting on the surface, but
There's got to be a but in there somewhere. What's the catch with this whole intelligence age utopia thing?
well, I mean, the article is careful to call it transformation, not a utopia, right?
Okay, transformation, right?
There's a difference. It's kind of like, yeah, indoor plumbing is great and all, but imagine trying to like rewire a whole city
Mm-hmm.
for indoor plumbing while people are still using outhouses.
Yeah, messy.
It's going to be messy, right? Right. That's
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about here. But for like basically every aspect of how we live and work.
So we're all going to be stuck in the metaphorical cold waiting for this AI plumber to finish up. I'm not sure that sounds much like prosperity.
And that's why the article keeps stressing that this isn't just a tech problem to solve. It's about how we manage the transition as a society, right? Because think back to something like the Industrial Revolution. I mean, yeah, eventually it led to amazing things, but along the way, tons of jobs vanished, new ones popped up that nobody was prepared for.
She's disruptive.
It was hugely disruptive, and for a lot of people, it was really rough. And the article's saying we're kind of heading into a similar situation, only this time it's happening like 10 times faster.
So what do we do? Do we just hit pause on the AI revolution for a bit while we figure it out?
I mean, I don't think you can just unplug the internet, right? We're kind of past that point.
Right, true.
But what we can do, and what the article really pushes for, is this idea of responsible development.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
So, in a nutshell, it means making sure that AI benefits everyone, not just the people who are building it or, the ones who can afford it.
Right. So, like, how do we actually make that happen, though? What's the plan?
So it's less about having this like fixed plan and more about constantly adjusting the sails as we go,
Yeah.
right? But the article does highlight a few key things we need to be doing. Like first and foremost, we need to be having these open and honest conversations about the potential impact of AI now, not 5 years down the road when it's too late. And we need everyone at the table for these conversations. Governments, businesses, researchers, the works.
So it's like setting the ground rules before the game even starts, right?
Exactly. And crucially, those ground rules need to be rooted in ethics. Like just because we can teach a machine to do something, it doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Right.
And the article really emphasizes this point about making sure that AI aligns with our values as a society. It's like that whole don't be evil thing, but like actually taking it seriously this time.
Yeah, well, easier said than done, right? Especially when evil can be hiding in like lines of code. How do we even begin to like regulate that?
And that's why the article talks about the importance of transparency in AI development, making sure these systems are understandable, even auditable by outsiders. Like we need to be able to see how these AI systems are making decisions, not just blindly trusting that they'll always do the right thing.
Makes sense. So we're setting ethical ground rules, we're building these systems to be transparent, but what about the people whose jobs are already being affected by AI right now? What do we tell them?
Yeah, and that's a huge piece of this whole puzzle, right? And the article does talk about potential solutions like retraining programs, maybe even things like universal basic income as ways to help manage the transition. And nobody has all the answers here, but the point is we need to at least be thinking about these things now and be prepared to support the people who might be most impacted by these shifts.
So less let them eat cake and more let's figure out how to bake this future cake together.
Exactly. And hey, maybe with AI's help, we can bake a future cake that's even tastier than we could have imagined before, right?
Right.
But we got to make sure everyone gets a slice.
I like that. Baking a future cake together, huh? I like that. It's kind of cool though, right? This article isn't just saying, hey, AI's coming, deal with it. It's like, no, we actually get to help shape what this intelligence age is going to look like.
Right. That's the exciting part. We're not talking about just predicting the future. We're talking about making choices that actually create the future. And
It's huge.
it is huge. And the article even lays out some possibilities that seem totally wild, like solving climate change, actually building colonies in space.
Yeah.
Heck, even using AI to help us understand the universe in ways we can't even imagine right now.
Okay. Yeah, those are some pretty big ifs in there.
Right, right.
But I see what they're getting at. If we can barely even wrap our heads around what AI can do right now, who's to say what we could accomplish if we actually put our minds to it?
And that's what I think is so interesting about this whole intelligence age concept, right? It's
Yeah.
not really about how smart machines can become. It's about us becoming more intelligent about how we use these incredible tools.
So it's more of a reflection on us than it is on the technology itself.
In a way, yeah. And that takes, it takes constant learning, adapting, questioning everything.
It's a process. So for somebody who's listening to us right now and maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all this,
And who wouldn't be right?
yeah, exactly. What's the one thing you'd want them to take away from this deep dive?
If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, that's totally normal because this stuff is complex.
Yeah.
But don't check out. Don't tune it out. Stay curious. Keep asking questions. Keep learning because the more we all understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to shape its future, right?
Absolutely. Stay curious. I love that. And on that note, I think that's got to be our cue to wrap up this deep dive.
Indeed.
So, to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the intelligence age. And until next time, as always, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the topics that matter.